everybody. Welcome back to the Dice Tower. My name, Z Garcia.
My name, Joey Evans.
That's right, baby. And today, though, we would like to go by two different names. Dracula versus
Van Halen. Helsing.
That's the one.
So
Yo,
close.
so close.
So close.
You know? Gotta jump sometimes.
It's right there.
In this game, two-player game here, we are going to be representing these two different characters with Dracula trying to take over a district in this city. Turn everybody in there into a vampire. Or run out the clock.
Nope, not on my watch.
Van Helsing is trying to take out Dracula's health pool by hitting him enough. And so in this head-to-head game, one of the two players is going to win, but as you can tell, it's asymmetric.
It is.
So let's go ahead and take a look at how the game works. I'll give you a quick look at it on the table. We'll come on back, and we'll tell you what we think of it.
All right.
Here's what the game looks like set up. On the one side, you're going to have the Dracula player sitting over here, and the way they win is by having a district contain all four people turned into vampires, and you'll denote that by flipping them over like that, or by running out the clock at the end of the 5th day, and you'll use the little boat here to track that. If your opponent has not won, then the Dracula player will win. Van Helsing is sitting on that side, and the way they win is by wounding Dracula 12 times. If they manage to do that, the game is over and they win. And this is going to happen either or any of the three ways to win the game will happen immediately once achieved. So if Dracula would win on this turn, but they would do it later in the round, if they are wounded first of their 12th hit, then the Van Helsing player will win. Over here we've got the suits in the game ranked randomly at the beginning of the game, with a trump suit over here and the other three ranked next to it. And then we are going to take turns drawing from the shuffled tiles here and putting them onto our rack so that they are corresponding to a location on the board. There are 5 districts in here. They have a number of little white pips right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 right there. And we are going to be, like I said, drawing cards that correspond to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those districts, all right? Once we have done this, then the Dracula player will always be first, and they are going to take their first turn. So on your turn, you are going to draw a card, then choose to discard one of the cards, including the one you just drew. So say my first turn over here as Dracula, I am going to draw one of these. My opponent would not see it, obviously. I'm going to take a look at that card, and then I can either discard this new card and trigger the ability on it, or I could swap it with one of my cards here and trigger the ability on that. Something like this, and then the one I'm discarding now, I would trigger the ability on. My other option is to call the end of the round. When I call the end of the round, 2 things are going to happen. First of all, there need to be at least 6 discarded cards that already have been cycled in and out of players' hands here. So I cannot call it before there are 6 face-up discards. But then once I do that, my opponent gets 1 more play, and then we are done, and we are going to check who wins at each of these districts by revealing the cards in order and then checking who wins. If my opponent wins, i.e. if Van Helsing wins, they're going to wound Dracula for 1. If Dracula wins, they make a vampire in the corresponding district. So really, Dracula only needs to win 4 times to win the whole thing, but of course it has to be in the right district, and my opponent is not going to let me get away with that. So I draw a card, I check, and then I discard one, all right? And these are all going to have various powers when you discard them. So let's go ahead and talk about what these powers are, all right? Let's say I discard a number 1, and number 1 says that I have to reveal one of my cards. So if I discard this, and I'll put it over here, I then have to take a card on my side, and I have to reveal it out in front of my rack here so that my opponent knows what it is. That's the power on the number 1. Not really much of a power, but you are getting rid of a very weak card because you don't want a number 1. The number 2 is going to force me to reveal the top card of the deck, and so both players will know what that is. Number 3 lets me reveal one of my opponent's cards. I'll pick one at random and say, okay, that one, and they have to reveal it just like I did previously. A number 4 is going to let me swap 2 of the tiles I have on my rack. So if this looks like so, and I discard a number 4, then I could take any 2 I want to, and I could swap them around like so. All right. All right. A number 5 is going to let me take another round immediately. I discard the 5, and then I go again immediately, drawing or calling the end of the round. And then a number 6, which I do not believe we have out here, so I'll go looking for one. The number 6 is going to let me swap a card across with my opponent. Whereas you see the number 4 lets you switch 2 of your own, and number 6 lets me switch with my opponent. So I could say, okay, I'm swapping the one that corresponds to District 5 with your District 5. I'll take this, you get this one. There we go, like that. Number 7 is going to let me swap one of these with the current trump card. So I could say, you know what, I want this to be the most important suit. And as you can see, again, all the cards have their suit here. And then lastly, number 8, if you discard that, you are going to immediately end the game. They have to be at least, you can only discard this when there have been at least 6 discards. And you immediately end the round as well. But instead of letting your opponent have one more turn and then we compare, if you discard an 8, we immediately go to comparing our cards. The opponent does not get that free one turn before we are done. All right? So let's say this looks like this, and let's say the round is indeed over now. I'm going to give myself a couple more cards here, and we're going to compare so that you understand how scoring works. All right? There's at least 6. One player called it, the other player took their final turn, and we are now going to compare. So we both reveal, then, the first cards over here. That's what I have, that's what my opponent has. If either one of them is the trump card, that player wins. If neither one, or if both are the trump card, then the highest number wins. If neither one is the trump card, then also the highest number wins. But if it's a tie for 2 suits like this, where neither one is the trump card, then and only then does the ranking here come into play, as it does right now. Yellow is up here, this teal is down here, and they're both 2s, so yellow's going to win, i.e. Dracula wins, and I flip over one of these to a vampire. These can now be discarded, and we reveal the next one. I reveal that, they reveal that. Mine's a trump, it's a 1, I win that. I'm going to make a vampire in District 2. We go to the next one, that and that. I have a 5. It doesn't matter that red is higher. My number is larger. Number first, then ranking, unless you're talking about trump. And so I win that, and I make a vampire in the 3rd district. We go to the next one. We reveal that. We reveal that. I should probably let my opponent win one of these. What do you think? Just so you can see the other side of this equation. It looks like this. Hey, look at that. Van Helsing wins, and they wound me for 1. This is gone. They can remove that. And then for the last one, we do this and do this. That's a trump over there. It doesn't matter. The number's lower, and I indeed win again. Dracula is on a roll. So there we go. That would be the end of the first day. The boat will advance. We're going to shuffle everything up, and we're going to do it again. And like I said, if Dracula gets 4 vampires in one place, they win, or if they run out the clock. And if Van Helsing gets all of these wounds, they wound Dracula this many times, they win. This happens immediately. So if I would make my 4th vampire over here, but I take my final wound here, then the game is immediately over and I've lost as Dracula. You do have to do these in order, and that very much will matter in the game. So there you go. That is the game. Let's go ahead and go back up top. All right, there we go, folks. That is Dracula versus Van Helsing. So this game is a little bit of a spiritual successor to Jekyll versus Hyde.
I have not played that one.
It's a 2-player, same kind of artwork, 2-player trick-taking game. And that's pretty much really where the similarities stop. They have Weber's and Santiago artwork. I think, actually, maybe it's not. Maybe it's Vincent Dutrait. Anyway, They have gorgeous artwork, and it's a similar-ish sort of idea. This one famous character versus this other famous character. In that case, it's technically the same person, whatever.
Right.
But that's really it. The games are very, very different.
Yeah.
And liking one, if you already know that game, does not necessarily mean you'll like this one. So, talking about this game right here. I am a little finicky when it comes to, I guess, simultaneous selection of stuff, or this idea of sort of like programming or slowly setting my side until I feel I'm ready, and then being like, oh, okay, I think I'll win, so I'm going to call it. Those games are kind of hit and miss for me.
Right.
That kind of mechanism, okay? But I think in this game, it works pretty well. And it especially works well after the first round. Because the first round in this game is a little flatter than the follow-ups. The reason for that being Dracula, once they start turning people into vampires in one or two of the districts, they really want to focus on those. Because that's how they win that race. Or they want to double bluff. That's where they're going to be focusing on. Right?
Yes.
And right there, therein lies the rub. This game has a nice amount of kind of one-upmanship and bluffing, reversals of fortune, cards, that you draw. Which ones do you discard? You have these available to you. The better powers are on the higher cards, generally. So, do you give up that card for the ability printed on it? Like 7. Giving up a 7 lets you switch the ranking of the suits.
Which is huge.
That's huge. But you just gave up a 7 to do that.
Right.
So where's that breaking point? It's an interesting feeling game. One that's kind of subtle, right? I mean, in many ways.
And you're right about the second round and further being so much better. Because the first round, you're playing random cards. There's no positions don't matter that much.
They don't matter. Right? You're just trying to win some of the 5 rounds. Yeah.
Right. But later it becomes like a Princess Bride type thing where you're like, okay, I know you want to put somebody here, but I know you want to put somebody here. So when you can start swapping people and grabbing them. And then you mentioned about how you can end anytime you want to. That also I don't like either because you feel like, but if they just call an end, you get that one extra turn and you can do a lot of damage with that one extra turn.
Sure.
But you can mitigate that by dropping that card that just says, nope, it's over now.
Yeah, so you play the 8. You're giving up an 8.
You're giving up an 8.
That's the best card.
Right.
But they don't get to respond.
Exactly. So, I mean, that really, losing that's rough unless it's up against a trump that you're not going to win anyway. But there's that, I like that give and take. I like that strategy going forward with that. It's simple to learn, too.
I also liked that even though you're basically really playing against someone who's like you're going in blind, basically. It's my 5 best cards, I hope.
Yeah.
Correctly arranged, again, I hope, versus your 5 cards. And I know nothing about them. But there's enough abilities across those 8 cards that have abilities. There's enough of those that let me see or switch with you or manipulate where I generally have some idea of what I'm walking into. Either I force you to review one of your cards, and I'm like, okay, cool, I know what that one is. Or I reveal the top of the deck, and then you take them, like, cool, I know what that one is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I like that. I like that it's not just, I have no idea what you've got. I'm over here. When do I call it? I don't know if I'm winning. When do I stop?
That's it. Yeah, and then discarding that 1 when you have to reveal your card.
Right.
I mean, that's like, what do you reveal? Do you show them you have an 8 sitting there, or do you show them, hey, you're going to win this slot?
Yeah.
The later rounds, it makes more sense if you reveal somewhere you don't really care about. But earlier, you're like, I don't want to give that information away.
It's a good feeling game. It's not too long, not too short.
Artwork's great.
The artwork is great. Now, the first time I played, I was a little underwhelmed. I thought, this is a little flat. This is not... There aren't any highs and lows here, And it was the end was nice, but the game felt a little flat. But I think it's because this game is pretty subtle at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I think you have to go in knowing that there's not going to be too many sort of whiz-bang moments.
Right.
It's a little bit of a subtle back and forth. Plenty of luck, absolutely. But there's things you are deciding. There's places you choose to put those cards or swap them or swap with your opponent. There's a lot of little things you can do to affect where you end up.
Right.
They are small steps along the way to victory or defeat. And so it's grown on me. My thoughts on it have kind of grown on me, I will say, component-wise, while the artwork is fantastic, the insert even is very nice. The cards, they're really tiles.
Right.
I worry about the wear and tear on those, and that is paramount to the playability of this game. If those tiles are marked, you can't really play.
That is a good point.
You can't sleeve them.
You can't.
Because they're not cards. They are tiles. So I'm of two minds when it comes to that. I like the quality of the tiles. And the card racks, beautiful. But the tiles are nice. They're thick. They're hefty. They're going to put up to some kind of wear and tear. But they will mark more easily than a linen finished card or something.
Yep.
And they don't shuffle super well.
No.
And if you are someone who does the whole toss them on the table and shuffle them like this, just wash the tiles, you're going to mark your tiles quickly.
Yep, I agree with that.
You're going to wreck it, and you can't just leave it. So I don't know if I would have preferred they go with cards or not.
I know why they went tiles, so they can sit up at that angle and not kind of flop back and forth.
Yeah, and again, there's few enough where going with a tile might have been, they were like, well, we can't just make like this many cards. Let's make tiles.
Right.
Yeah, I think they were going for a higher quality. Tiles are a higher quality, technically. But they'll chip. The little corners start to chip, and you can't be able to tell what they are. That messes the game up.
It does. Especially if you overhand shuffle them, you can bend those sides and whatever, so you have to be careful with them.
Yeah. So there we go, folks. That is Dracula versus Van Helsing. For me, I'm going to come in at a 7.5 on this one. I like it. I don't love it. It did not blow my mind, but it's grown on me, like I said. And in fact, I could see it going up more if you continue playing with the same person. You get to know each other's sort of style, what kinds of things they do. And again, that subtlety will reveal itself as you play more, A, but also more with the same person, B.
Right.
So right now I'm coming in at a 7.5. I'm really enjoying this one. It's a lovely package, and one I can easily recommend, again, if you find yourself playing with a significant other over and over, the same game, that's where it's going to really get better. If you keep sort of floating to a different opponent each time, it won't sort of grow. It won't bloom that way.
I agree. I'm coming in I can see mine going up. I'm coming in at a 7 because I really enjoy this game. But I can see that going higher the more plays I get in of it. Because it's one of those things when you walk away, I sit here and think, man, I could have done this different. And every time I think about this game, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try this. Because it is that fun give and take. And I love that risk of the fact that, you know what, I'm going to switch this to this trump and then I'm going to call it.
Oh my God.
Because I am hoping that he's been banking on this other trump.
Right.
But there's a chance he's just given up on that and he just has those cards.
Yeah.
So that right there, I really love that. And I love the fact that there's so few cards in the deck that you can be like, okay, I know that's already played. I know that is. There's a lot to unpack in this game for as quick as it is. This is probably the ideal into the night or even just jumping off game. I think it's really good.
Yeah, you're right. The information here, what's out there, is trackable to a decent degree.
Right.
So yeah, again, that evolution of getting good at this game. I could see, while there is luck in this game, I can definitely see somebody who is good at this game and has played it a bunch, just wrecking shop against people learning.
I agree.
They will have more information than you are utilizing.
Yep.
They're using different things that you're not, So there you go, folks. That is Dracula versus Van Helsing 7.57. That is a seal of approval for this one. Check it out if you are in the market for a fantastic-looking two-player game and you're not too hard on your components, then this is gonna, is gonna put up with you, and you're gonna get a lot of fun out of it. So there you go. That's gonna do it. My name is Z Garcia.
I'm Joey Evans.
Watch out for Van Halen.
Jump.